Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Rush Roundtable. This is episode number 146. We are talking again about overlooked tracks, continuing with our, I guess, 5-part series of Rush Roundtable, if you will, discussing overlooked tracks, because seemingly every time I go on Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, there's somebody discussing what they think are underrated or overlooked Rush tracks. So here we are, creating kind of a series out of this. Today we're going through A Farewell to Kings, Hemispheres, Permanent Waves, and Moving Pictures. But before we do that, today is September 12th. Would have been the 70th birthday of the professor, Neil Peart. So we want to do a very quick moment of silence for Neil. Thank you, everyone. He's made such an impact on our lives with both his music and his lyrics, and we're here to talk about, of course, the four most overlooked albums. Obviously, I'm kidding. So I think that this is possibly, the best stretch of albums that we could possibly talk about here. So this should be fun. Before we do that, David has something that he wants to plug real quick. So go ahead.
Yeah, so for those of you who are viewing, live in or around the Dallas area, Maya Wynn is coming to Dallas. Maya Wynn, of course, did lead vocals for Envy of None, Alex Lifeson's current project. And she's going to be coming through October 3rd in McKinney, Texas, Uncorked Bar and Grill. There's a Facebook event page. We'll probably maybe post that so you can look that up. It's going to be a free concert. We're requesting donations because, artists have to eat and whatnot. But if you're in this area, please come out to see Maya Wynn. It's going to be a very small venue, intimate evening, and we want to see you there.
And she's a really sweet person. I've had the opportunity to talk to her on a few occasions. Just the nicest person. And
a great sense of humor.
She's awesome. She was on Rush Roundtable once, and I'm sure she'll be on again in the future. She's awesome, yeah. If I was anywhere near that, I would go. All right. So let's go through. We've switched up the order a little bit from last week. And we're going to start with Jared. And, of course, we're going to start with A Farewell to Kings. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, this is not going to be a shocker. I think the most overlooked song from A Farewell to Kings is A Farewell to Kings. It has one of the most beautiful acoustic intros, and then it just rocks. It's almost like the trees before the trees. Okay, yeah. And it hasn't been played live since 1980. It was not played live since 1980. I can't believe it. And could you imagine Alex stepping behind the guitar and the acoustic, stand, and everyone thinking, oh, trees, here comes trees. And then instead it's A Farewell to Kings. It would have blown our minds. So I would have loved to see it live at some point, but for all those reasons, I'm picking A Farewell to Kings.
Cool. Next is Omar, who's got a brand new video out, I believe, today.
Yep, it's out today.
On what he thinks are the top 10 Rush songs on his channel, All About Rush. So go check that out. I watched it. It's good stuff. So go ahead.
Thanks. Well, yeah, so overlooked on A Farewell to Kings. So this one is completely overlooked by me. So this is Cinderella Man. And the reason it's overlooked is because for years, for the longest time, I thought Neil Peart was the one who wrote the lyrics to that song. And I even made a bet with my brother. I'd never looked. The way it was written, the lyrics, it just sounded like Neil Peart. It sounded like him. So my brother made a bet with me and then, no, it's not. It's Geddy Lee. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I finally looked, and it's Geddy. And I was so surprised, but at the same time, I realized, well, I guess hanging around Neil, I just think it's an excellently written lyric song. The lyrics, the way he, it flows really well. It just felt to me like it was Neil the whole time who wrote the lyrics to that song. So, I mean, kudos to Geddy. I think that's his best. He didn't write that many lyrics for Rush, but this is his best one, I think, by far. Yeah. So Cinderella Man, completely overlooked by me. That's why I picked that one.
It's almost like Neil's storytelling rubbed off on
Yeah,
getting it away with it.
exactly.
David?
Well, I'm going to agree with Jared. I picked A Farewell to Kings as well. Won that great opening when I learned how to poorly play it. That was a lifetime achievement for me. And it's so, I remember playing it for my mother way back in 77, 78. And I said, Mom, you got to hear this. It's so, and I knew she didn't like hard rock. So I kind of tricked her with this opening. And she says, well, that's very nice. And then it came in with that, big power chord. And my mother's like, why do they always have to do that to nice music? And but it's orchestral. Its message, like so many Rush songs, continues to resonate today. And when you think Farewell to Kings, Xanadu, Close to the Heart, those songs, so they forget the opening and title track, I think, sometimes.
100%. Donna?
Yep. I talked about this song a little while ago, and I still feel the same way. Overlooked by everyone, including your humble servant. I had not thought about this song until we did the deep dive. Madrigal. Such a beautiful little song. And not only such a beautiful little song, but again, for all those that say, oh, Neil never wrote a love song. Really? Okay. I mean, this is just that I keep coming back to lovely, charming, beautiful. It really is based on the 17th century form of the madrigal. It's just, I'm sorry, lovely. And it has lyrics that are charming. The thing about slaying the dragons and everything. But the thing I like is the verse about in vain to search for honor, in vain to search for truth. But these things can still be given. Your love has shown me proof. I mean, here's Neil, the romantic. And why this song hasn't gotten more attention over the years just mystifies me.
Yeah, certainly overlooked. And that's probably a track that's overlooked by a lot of the fan base too, which, I would say hardcore Rush fans don't overlook.
Maybe
much,
because
right?
it doesn't sound like, we're expecting like power this and power that.
Yeah.
But they did have a tender side. And there's nothing wrong with that. There were so many different perspectives this band gave us. So why not a tender love song? I mean, in the Rush style, but still, just why not?
If they can play Beth by Kiss on a rock station, I'm sure they can play Madrigal by Rush. It's a short song, radio friendly.
Yeah.
Do you remember any time they ever performed it?
No,
it was never done live.
I saw Primus do it live.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I asked last time, I thought like, nah, this can't be right. But I don't recall them ever doing it live.
Nope, never been done.
Nope.
Why? It was a great song.
All right. Well, I'm going to give what I think will be a shocker here. It is a very non-radio friendly song. And that's kind of why I think this is overlooked. All right. Xanadu. Now you're going to look at me like I'm crazy, but obviously it's not. Yeah, obviously it's not overlooked by Rush fans, right? And obviously it's not overlooked by the band, but it's overlooked by, I think, just rock and roll in general, like radio stations and folks who are, rock and roll enthusiasts, I guess, probably because of its length. This song's got everything. I mean, spoiler alert, it's in Omar's list. I won't tell you where in Omar's list it is, but there's another, I can't recall the guy's name, but just did a piece on the best Rush song ever. He picked Xanadu.
That was Rick Beato.
There you go. That's his name. And I mean, this is a song that demonstrates, Neil's storytelling. It demonstrates the musicianship of all three members of the guys in the group.
Their commitment to classic literature.
Yeah, I mean, if the song length was cut in half, you hear it on the radio all over the place. But I think it's overlooked by, and again, you have the ability to say who you think these are overlooked by. I think it's specifically overlooked by radio. and I think it should be on the radio more. And I think if it was, people may have kind of woken up to Rush a little earlier than they did, because I feel like that kind of started to happen in 2007, 2008, the Colbert Report, all that. And they came a little more mainstream. But so that's my pick. So Adam, with the toilet in his living room, you're up.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a bathroom renovation that I'm doing. So that gets to chill there for now. But
there you go. You'll have to do the next one from that.
Yeah, I'm gonna change out seats. No. So I'm going for the more musically overlooked, but Cinderella Man as well. But in particular, I think Geddy's bass work in that song, when you think of great, even just from that album, great Geddy bass lines, you always think of Cygnus X1, and that's going to be the one that so many people are drawn to. But I think it's so funky, and like from a bass technical standpoint, it's so much more impressive to me than Cygnus X1, because Cygnus X1 is more about the counting and more about the time shifts, but everything in Cinderella Man is all in the fingers and the technique and the articulation of the different notes. He's got these ghost notes that go and that give this great texture, and just the interplay between him and Alex in that solo is just so fun. And it's almost like a precursor to what they did in Free Will, where you have like this epic bass solo going on while Alex solos on top of it. And it's just such a great musical moment, that being a song that's overshadowed by the other tracks on there, already musically, it's just got so many surprises.
And of course, we'll quickly plug Adam's podcast as well, the Rush Discuss. You can check that out on YouTube and wherever else you get podcasts. Paul, last but not least, the best for last.
The best for last. The beauty of being last is that everybody's pretty much already vocalized my opinions, so that at the end I just have to announce which song that was on my list. I was torn between two songs. I kept debating back and forth. Finally, it was between A Farewell to Kings and Madrigal, and it's A Farewell to Kings for me. It's a title. It's the title track, but yet doesn't get the attention it deserves.
The curse of the title track with Rush. That's a common theme if you look at the catalog. Yeah, I mean, there may be a whole bunch of title tracks in this series. So, all right, now on to Hemispheres. Jared.
Well, this is tough pickings here, but I'm going to say The Trees, because I think this is a top 10 Rush song, and it doesn't get the same, I don't know, just recognition as things like Tom Sawyer, Free Will, Limelight, etc. But I really think it should. And it's very similar to A Farewell to Kings. I love both of them for their acoustic intros and then the way they just start rocking. And I like the story about the Oaks and Maples. It's it's a cool way to tell a story.
So overlooked by the fans, you think? Just Rush fans?
Yeah, I do. I think I remember Steve and Jerry talking about top 10s, and they were like, no one has The Trees. And I was like, I do. Okay, like I love that song. Yeah. That's kind of why it came to mind. Yeah.
Sure. Omar?
All right, so I see it a little differently. My pick was Circumstances. Only reason is because every other song is just a killer song. And I think Circumstances is also a killer song, but it just happens to be slightly less of a killer song. But it's just that Hemispheres is so popular. La Villa Stranziato is so popular. The Trees is so popular. Poor little Circumstances. It's a good that Rush brought it back for the Snakes and Arrows tour. I really loved the lower key that they played it in. That sounded great also. But it's a song that everybody knows. Rush fans love the song. It's just standing among giants. So that's why I think Circumstances is overlooked in that way.
Good points, David.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up with Omar. My pick was Circumstances as well. It's one of those songs that, because you have side one, is so epic. The Strangiato, unless you're a total nerdy Rush fan like all of us, you might forget Circumstances. It is radio friendly, I think, in terms of length. And also, I think of, it was some of Neil's story when he ran off to England, a boy alone so far from home, thinking things would work out, but circumstances, they didn't work out. So it's autobiographical, I think, but overlooked in this sense. It could have been on the radio again and again and again. Never was that I heard it.
That's fair. Donna?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of conform with everybody else here and go with Circumstances, although my reasoning is a little different. When I think of this song, I think about Neil's dad. God rest his soul. He also passed last year. Glenn at first did not understand why his son wanted a music career. He wanted him to basically just, work in the family store, and not that Neil didn't love his dad, not that Neil didn't love working in the family store, but it wasn't where his heart was. And in the end, Glenn even built Neil, like a carrying case for his equipment. I mean, he wanted to show him, like, if I got to let you go, if you got to go to England, I'm there for you, okay? I support you 100%. And that had to be hard for him, okay? And yet he did it. And in this song, it's almost kind of like it doesn't turn out the way Neil hoped it would. He talks about that we're tricked by circumstances. He thought once he got there, I'm not reading his mind, but I'm sure that like most young kids who love music, it's like, hey, I'm going to get there and I'm going to be welcomed and I'll find a band. And, the millions of people in Hollywood that all think they're going to be actors and actresses and stuff like that. And they end up waiting on tables, And I think Neil was really disappointed with how it turned out. And he came home, and where did he end up? Working in his father's store. And I feel like this song really reflects an autobiographical part, not just about his trip to England, but about how he had to reconcile the fact that things didn't work out right away. Eventually, he kind of gets his mojo back. He hears about this band named Rush that's looking for a drummer. But the song reflects like maybe we do take chances, but maybe we're all just the victims of circumstances. Maybe plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. Maybe the more things change, the more they stay the same. And at the time, he had no idea how much things were going to change for him not that long after he got back. So yeah, if we're looking for moments in time that tell us a little more about who Neil is, this is a very important song.
And Donna, when he says in the song, all the same, all the same, we take our chances. It's like, you try different things. It kind of turns out the same way. Like you said, he didn't know what was coming, but at that moment, all the same.
Later version is the big wheel, right? Same thing.
Yeah.
Spins,
That's a good point. Yeah. All right. Well, that'll be tough to follow. So I'll throw another curveball at you here. And I'm going to say the almost title track, Cygnus X1 Book 2 Hemispheres. Now you're wondering, why do I think this is overlooked? Well, again, yes. I don't think this is overlooked by Rush fans. I think this is overlooked by everyone who puts 2112 on this pedestal like it's the greatest thing ever. And because I think Hemispheres is as good, if not even better than 2112. I know I'm getting some cringes, but I really do. I really think that highly of the Cygnus X1 Book 2 Hemispheres. So I think it's overlooked by the folks that put 2112, in a category of its own. The song, obviously, the epics wise, I'm talking here, and because I think Hemispheres is just that good. Jared, you wanted to say something? You look like you wanted to
No,
say
it's a top 10 Rush song, in my opinion. I think 2012 is number one.
I think even Donna was about to punch the screen. I don't know. She looked like she was holding back.
Yeah.
One thing
Adam.
the band said that they pushed themselves beyond their own musical abilities at that time to do Hemispheres.
Right.
Yes.
That's why Permanent Waves didn't have a longer than 10-minute track on it, because of Hemispheres, really.
Yeah.
They've obviously said that. I'm paraphrasing, but they've said that. So that's why Natural Science went from Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which was going to be a long song, to Google it. Okay, Adam, go ahead.
So yeah, I'm gonna back Ryan up on this, because it was extreme. This was actually the hardest decision for me for the whole catalog between Circumstances and Hemispheres. But in the end, I have to go with Hemispheres, because even for Rush fans, I think what's overlooked is just how difficult that music is to play for the members in the band who wrote it. I mean, when you think of how they brought it back for R40 and playing the prelude and the first movement, and it was the only time that I've seen them live that I could see, like, as a musician, and I was like, oh, they're having a rough time playing this. Like, it was just the moments that were supposed to be just extremely tight, like they were just fraction off, and that's when you realize how everything in that song musically is written to be so tight together. And just the composing on Neil's drum part, just the way he brings in the different textures, and the way that, just to illustrate the story and illustrate the lyrics. And then you get Geddy's insane stamina represented in the bass. It just never lets up. I've attempted to play through it, and it's, you feel like you've just run a marathon. And so the fact that this is what they were putting out at this time, coupled with, I think, some of Neil's most ambitious lyrics, as far as trying to put forward a summation of his philosophy at the time. And, it's a tough thing for them to really open up and be like, this is us. This is everything that we can give. And to be that vulnerable in an epic like that, I think that's why, for me, it does sit above the rest of the epics, because this was their pinnacle musically, and this is their pinnacle lyrically when it came to the epics.
So going forward, I'm just going to make a pick and then just let you back it up. How's that sound?
Man, if that's overlooked.
So Paul's gonna tell us why he thinks La Villa Trinciano's overlooked. So go ahead.
Okay, are you insane? No, I was gonna keep it short and just say a couple of lines, but then no disrespect, but Donna stole my thunder. Puis ça change, puis c'est la même chose. I was gonna break out my French Canadian, right? But yeah, no, to me it's Circumstances. That's the one that's overlooked because it's overshadowed by such great. There's 4 songs on one album. Slim pickings, right? So that's what I picked.
That's true. All right. Now we're going to go through Permanent Waves.
Okay.
This should be good.
I'm going to say Different Strings. It's phenomenal. Different Strings. I mean, it's so beautiful. And this song is highly overlooked. I love the harmonics at the end and that solo that he plays towards the end. That's all I'll say. It's just a beautiful song.
Cool. Omar?
So for my pick in my notes here, I only wrote one little line. I said, not overlooked by the fans, but by Rush themselves. And it's Different Strings. I concur with Jared. I've not heard of a Rush fan that does not like this song. Everybody likes it. And I think Rush dropped the ball when not playing this song live. And many people have talked about the guitar solo that Alex starts to play at the end, and then it fades away. It's so good. We never get to hear what Alex could have done with that live. So the lyrics are superb. Neil's drumming is so perfect for that song. I mean, so reserved, so articulate, and dynamic. Yeah, I mean, everything's great about that song. And I actually did a video on 3 misses in Rush's career. That was one of them. They should have played that song live. So I think this song was overlooked by Rush themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's a good point. David?
Well, I'm going to be real original here. Different strings. For all the things that Jared and Omar both said, and following Entre Nous, it's the same theme of this difficulty of human relationships and how we connect and how we don't connect and all the misses. It's a beautiful song, beautiful melody. And then, one note on that solo going out to kind of speak to what Omar was saying. I think of Mission, right? It fades out on the record, but in the live version, the way that, it comes back in with Geddy's vocal at the end and whatnot, just so majestic. And I wonder what different strings would have been after that kind of grungy, thing that, Alex does with the kind of dissonant chord and the whammy bar. And, what if that had continued and not faded out? How would they have ended that live? It's just a song I listen to again and again and again and again. One of my favorites, really, of all time.
Yeah, it's definitely one that I think could have took on new life live for sure. Donna?
Yeah, I'm going to be very unoriginal and go with Entre Nous. But again, reason being, I think this is a Neil kind of love song. And I've had people say to me, no, it's not a love song. And I'm like, really? What it is about relationship. Not all love has to be romantic love. Sometimes it's about we're secrets to each other, we're planets to each other, we're strangers to each other, we're islands to each other. We're constantly trying to shut ourselves off from relationship. I'll give you a very quick story because I know we're up against the clock and I don't want to go on endlessly. I teach a class called Thinking Outside the Bubble about communicating with the other side, because we hear so much about them. And I really feel like Neil is trying to say, recognizing that, yeah, we're different. Yeah, sometimes we're strangers or islands or whatever, but why does that mean we can't even talk to each other? Why do we have to put ourselves in our own little bubbles where we have no relationship other than with people who think just like us? Why can't we reach out? Why can't we build bridges? And when I think of this song, that's why I think it's a love song, because he's saying we have to leave room for you and I to grow. We won't always be the same. We won't always be stuck in this point of view. So why don't we give it a chance to see what can grow? So I'm thinking in that way.
So do you think that Entre Nous is overlooked by Rush fans in general?
I think it's misunderstood. I think it's classified as one thing when I think Neil intended it to be something entirely different. I think a lot of, including radio stations, don't know what to do with it. I mean, yeah, it's not quite hard rock. It's not quite romantic. It's not quite, cerebral. It's not quite. And yet, I say it's a very important song and deserves more attention than it gets. So that's why I picked it as overlooked.
One thing that occurs to me, and Ryan, tell me to shut up if you want me to.
And he will too.
Yeah. When I think of my meager knowledge of French, Entre Nous, of course, between us, but it's sort of a colloquialism that, hey, just between you and me, right? So to speak so intimately, hey, just between us, about the fact that there's so much between us, right? Is a powerful, powerful message. And
Neil said he got it from Ayn Rand, who used it in her novels. But the way she used it and the way he uses it are a little different, because he's starting to move away from that ideology and towards more relationship with those who think differently from him.
So first of all, I want to say Different Strings. I wrote down Overlooked by default, Different Strings, which by the way, the lyrics written by Geddy Lee. Another, similar to Cinderella Man, you know, it's kind of like, you really think this was written by Geddy until you look up the lyrics. But I'm going to actually pivot, because now you already all think that I'm insane. I'm going to pick Natural Science. And I'm going to pretty much default to everything I said in the prior two songs that had to do with hemispheres, because, again, I think not overlooked by Rush fans, not overlooked by the band. I mean, of course, the band played this quite a bit late in their career, but overlooked by radio stations. It's 9 minutes and 20 seconds or 30 seconds. And to quote what Donna just said about Entre Nous, radio stations didn't really know what to do with it. And I feel like that's the same thing with Natural Science. I mean, you got 3 movements and they're all vastly different movements, right? I feel like it's a song that you can, you know, if you put it on to someone who put the song on for someone who's a new Rush fan, they're either going to absolutely be blown away with it and fall in love with it, or they're going to say, you know, to quote Geddy in that Strombo interview, what the fuck is this? Like, you're going to say, there's going to be two polar opposites. You're either going to love it or hate it, right? So, yeah, I think it's overlooked by general rock and roll enthusiasts and radio stations, and I think it's definitely one that most people, if you give it a chance, you'll fall in love with it. So, at least rock and roll fans. Adam?
Yeah, I'm going with Entre Nous. This time overlooked by me in the musical sense, because I've always loved this song, and growing up I listened to it over and over, and you know, as I'm sure so many Rush fans have had this experience where the lyrics just spoke to you, and you're like, and like in the documentary, with Billy Corgan talking about sitting his mom down with the lyrics, and like, this is me. And you know, so having that sort of connection with it, musically I thought like, oh, you know, they build up and then they have this middle section that doesn't go anywhere. There's no solo, there's nothing. It's just empty music. And it wasn't until I got older and went back and actually tried to learn the bass line for that and realized, like, yet again, this is Rush being the musical geniuses that they are, and taking this moment, this instrumental moment, to restate the whole premise of the song, that musically they're showing how you can be separate but then have these bridges built towards each other. And it's just such a beautiful musical interlude that I think it's overlooked at kind of what its purpose is in the song, especially when so many people are like, well, when's Alex going to rip out this face melting solo?
Yeah.
I like that point.
Yeah, for sure. Paul?
I actually get to pick a song that no one's picked. I was kind of surprised. I thought someone was going to go that direction. I'm picking this song because I think it was overlooked by the band. I think it's one of the favorite ones from Rush fans, but it's overlooked by the band, and that would be, this is called Jacob's Ladder. Basically, they played it early on. You know, the moving picture store was the last time they played it, and then they kind of just parked it until R40 for almost 35 years. And I remember I saw an interview with Geddy, and he mentioned something about he just, for whatever reason, he didn't like playing that song. So I don't know if it was just not challenging for him or whatnot, like, you know. But I think at the end for R40, they kind of went, well, the fans keep asking for it, so we might as well throw it in the set. So, but to me, it's a fantastic song that got overlooked by the band. Chicken's
that
ladder.
they brought it back. And it got such a good reaction. We saw R40 in Boston.
I
the
lost it.
fans were just delighted when they started playing it.
I'm getting chills again because I was at the R40 in Boston, so I was just fantastic when they broke that song out.
It was funny in Dallas when they played it in Dallas. Geddy actually made the comment, "We're going to play a song now we've never played live," and every Rush fan, 12,000 Rush fans went, don't you listen to your own records? It was on Exit Stage Left. You could almost feel it.
They're thinking that Different Strings is probably coming right here now.
Even TC Brunzi, like that
song. All right, well, stick with us because we got one more record to go through, and that is what most people consider, the top Rush record. That's Moving Pictures. So, Jared, what song do you think is overlooked from Moving Pictures? This is tough.
I will say Vital Signs. I mean, this song is very weird, but in a loving way. I love it. I love how alternative it is. I really love the line, "Courageous convictions will drag this dream into existence." And there's a really killer bass solo towards the end. If you know, you know. It's really awesome. And so I go with Vital Signs.
Good stuff. Omar?
Well, the song I picked suffers from the same thing that Circumstances suffers from in Hemispheres, Witch Hunt. I think that's an overlooked song. Okay, well, in stages, like at the beginning, I think, amongst giant songs, I think Witch Hunt maybe was not as good initially as all the other songs. But I think over time, over the decades, I think Witch Hunt has grown in defiance to the rest of the songs on that record. It's like, I'm just as good as you guys. And it's a very epic sounding song, especially the keyboards, just majestic. And I think the song is better now than when it came out. But I think for the time, at that time, I think it was an overlooked song. And, they didn't play it initially live. I think that was left out in the Moving Pictures tour. But, they played it later. So,
Sure did. David?
Camera Eye. When you think of Moving Pictures, obviously Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta. Side one, basically. Camera Eyes, it's not overlooked by Rush fans. It's beloved, I think, Rush fans, and, just the changes in it, the different moods that go through it. It's obviously not a radio song because it's longer, but it's just such a great composition and such great lyrics. I think it's really one of the best pieces the band ever did, and I think is overshadowed by some of the other songs on that album that really brought them to the forefront of music in 1981.
Donna?
So I'm going to go back to Witch Hunt as well. When that first came out, it got a lot of airplay, but then it just seemed to be overshadowed by other songs. And that bothered Geddy. I've seen interviews with Geddy where he said, we need to hear this song now more than ever. We meaning people out there. Because, of course, it's part of the Fear trilogy. And it's all about people like blaming others for what's going on in society, being afraid of the other, demonizing the other. And boy, howdy, don't we see a lot of that. And so I think some radio stations were almost kind of like, whoops, don't want to get into this can of worms, because there are a lot of Rush fans who are very conservative, and there are a lot of Rush fans who are very liberal. And sometimes I think radio is like, let's just stick with the songs that are, let's play Limelight one more time, And I really think songs like Witch Hunt challenge you, they make you think. And what Neil is warning us is don't let fear dominate your life. And by the way, any song that has Hugh Syme playing synthesizer, how bad can that be?
Not bad at all.
Exactly.
So in keeping with my theme of, Well, I guess
Don't
controversy.
you dare.
Hold on. Controversy creates comments. All right. So here we no, it's not Tom Sawyer actually. It's Huckleberry Finn. Stupid. No. So the one I'm going to go, yeah, the song I'm going to go with actually is Red Barchetta. Now, why do I think it's overlooked? I think it's overlooked in terms of the other three songs that are on side A: Tom Sawyer, YYZ, and Limelight. Those are the songs that get probably more radio airplay. Obviously, it's not overlooked by the band or by Rush fans, but I think it's widely considered a hit Rush song. It's probably one of their best songs. It's a hit song, but I just think it's overlooked because there's so many other good tracks on that record that especially on side A, that Red Barchetta can kind of fall down a few notches for some people. But I could make the argument that Red Barchetta is their best song, period. And I'll save that for another time. But I just think that it often gets overshadowed to the other songs on side A, and it should be talked about more than it is. So if you disagree or you agree, leave a comment. I'd love to debate that with you in the comments. So Adam,
you know what, Ryan, before Adam goes, I'm switching. I think you're right. I'm gonna say Red Barchetta is
an historic moment.
Yeah.
Someone said I'm right.
Omar said you're right.
I defected.
Yeah. And how many rock bands write songs that were inspired by an article in Road and Track?
Exactly. The storytelling in that, it goes back to what I said with Xanadu, or what I said about hemispheres, or even natural science. The storytelling in that song is almost too much for radio play comparatively to the other three songs, obviously, right? Because it does get airplay, but it should get more than it does, is what I'm saying. Adam?
Going with Vital Signs. And I think yet again, it's all about the music for me, but in particular the bass solo. Because whenever people talk about moving pictures, no one's like, oh yeah, that's the one with Geddy's awesome bass solo. It's all these other moments that are talked about, but that song was what finally pushed me over the edge to be like, okay, I've got to learn how to play the bass. And that was the first song that I learned how to play on the bass. And it's just such a great finger workout, but just I love the boundaries that they pushed with that song, with the sequenced keyboard and giving such a cool texture. Neil's textures that he's exploring with the sparseness of the drums, and then having the real thrust of the percussiveness and the driving of the rhythm be that just relentless bass riff, and just such a cool song.
Yeah, definitely a precursor of what is to come, which next episode of Rush Roundtable. Paul, the best for last.
Basically, when I got to moving pictures, I went, okay, side one, nope, nothing on there. I'm going to pick. It was either side two, and I had to settle on Vital Signs. The reason being, I think it's kind of like it doesn't match the rest of the album. It's kind of the odd, it's that transition song. We've had the debate where this could have been on a future album, whether it be Signals or Grace. And so I think at this point is when some traditional hard rock Rush fans kind of went, whoa, what's this? What's going on here? And then Signals came out. They went, whoa, wait, time out. Like, some couldn't adjust to that direction, I guess. But Vital Signs was that initial hint. It's a great song. I loved hearing it at Time Machine Tour. That was my pick for that album, because it's a fantastic album. It's hard to pick a song. Let's be honest here.
Yeah. It's the most overlooked Rush album, right?
100%.
Paul
What's
is
moving?
going, yeah.
What's
I never
moving
heard
pictures?
of it. What's on it? Like who's
By
Rush?
anyone who has never heard it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's YYZ, by the way, Ryan. Come on, get it right.
It's the original
For
Canadian.
for you up there, sure, yeah, the Great White North.
Don't
Not
make
down
me
here.
break out my toque. Come on.
You should hear it in
Such a
Spanish.
hoser. It's such a hoser.
Oh, take off, eh?
Good
day,
that
eh?
Was, good day.
It's
Yeah,
a
that
like
was
good day.
that was fun. Probably these four albums were I was gonna say songs. These four albums definitely probably the toughest to pick overlooked songs from. I would say.
Yeah.
Hopefully we've got our work cut out for us in the next episode where we will discuss Signals, which of course just celebrated its 40th birthday. Grace Under Pressure, Power Windows, and Hold Your Fire, which also just celebrated its 35th birthday. So next week on Rush Roundtable, we'll be giving you what we think are overlooked songs from those four albums. What we here on Rush Roundtable call
Let
the
me
synth era.
reiterate something Ryan said. If you've been watching this and you're like throwing things at your monitor going, no, how come they picked this as opposed to that? Leave us a comment. We do read the comments. We're always happy to see what people are thinking. We would love to get your feedback. We doing all right? You finding this interesting? You having as much fun as we're having? Let us know.
What Donna said, 100%. With that, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel, like the video, like Donna said, leave a comment, and we'll see you on the next episode of Rush Roundtable. Take care, everybody.